The Damiki Rig is a rig that will help you land more fish when fishing gets tough. My name's Wesley Littlefield with YourBassGuy.com, and today I'm going to show you how to rig the Damiki Rig and a few fishing tips that'll help you catch more fish, whether you fish from a boat or the bank. Let's get started. Let's start with how to rig it. So disclaimer, I don't actually have a Damiki Rig jig head. Damiki is a brand and I couldn't find any in my local sporting goods store and they were way too expensive to have shipped to me. So I've got just a jig head, same exact concept. So we're gonna take our plastic swim bait, whether you've got a fluke, whether you've got a paddle tail, that part is up to you and kind of the conditions that you're fishing, as well as the color, but you're gonna pierce it through the top, run it all the way through, and try to figure out exactly where it needs to go. Out the top, come back, push it up snug. The most important thing when you're rigging it is to make sure it's straight this way, like it doesn't kick out weird, and make sure it's straight this way, both ways. That way you're not casting it out there and it's twirling in the water, it's not running properly. Rigging it straight is probably the most important thing. Another important thing when you're rigging it, mainly when you're fishing from a boat or a kayak, and that's to keep the knot up. And that's because of the technique that we're gonna be using, which I'm gonna move on to next. There's 100 different ways you could really fish the Damiki Rig, but there's a few that are the most effective. I'm gonna start with fishing from a boat or a kayak. And that's, you find them on your sonar, your live site, whatever, you cast down there and you just dead stick it, and you're not gonna let it sink all the way to the bottom. You're gonna set it and have it stop and float right above their heads, right near them, maybe a little bit below them, but right around them, wherever they're being most aggressive is really, you've kind of got to figure that out. But you're just gonna let it set there and maybe give it a few little light twitches, but then just let it set there. And that's it. Dead sticking it, some people call it, really boring, kind of like you would a drop shot, very similar technique. The other technique, and this is where more bank anglers can use it, as well as boat anglers and kayak anglers, and that's casting it out there and slow rolling it. Now I'm gonna cast it out, slowly bring it back. I might add a few twitches, pops here and there, but for the most part, it's just gonna be a slow retrieve, trying to figure out what depth they're at and how fast they really want it, and go from there. Another retrieve that everybody can use is actually hopping it off the bottom. So you're gonna cast it out, and this time you are gonna let it sink all the way to the bottom, hop it back to you, reel in the slack a little bit, hop it back to you. This looks like a bait fish that gets a little bit of energy and then dies, gets a little bit of energy and then dies, and that triggers a ton of bites. One tip for fall fishing the Damiki Rig, and that's actually downsizing your bait. Sometimes, you know, we think, oh, bigger baits, bigger fish. Yes, that is true in certain circumstances, but typically in the fall, downsizing a little bit will lead to more bites and sometimes a bigger bite. If you've never used swim baits before, I highly recommend checking out the video below where it talks about soft plastic swim baits, hard swim baits, everything you need to know to get started to fishing swim baits. Always remember that education is important, but fishing is essential.